So far in this chapter, we've been creating a model, set up a partial view, and build a controller. And we've also seen how all these work together. Now it's time to use all of these elements in order to create new content on our website. In this video, we'll be creating content based on the data that is submitted via our article form. Basically, we'll be building the functionality that will create a new article when the form is submitted. So, we want to create content. In order to do that, we need to access the content service, which is one of the many services that Umbraco ships with. The content service is our gateway to the content API, and we need access to it in order to create and work with content in our Umbraco project. Fortunately, we're working with service controllers in this chapter, and every Umbraco service is automatically available directly from the service controllers. It's available on the services property. Now, the content service that we're going to be using has a method called create, which we'll be using to create new articles for our website. This method takes 3 parameters. The first one is the name that the new content item, the new article, should have. The second one is the ID for the parent page, so the page that the article should be placed under. And finally, the third parameter is the alias of the document type that we will be using for creating the new content item. In our case, we will be using the article document type. Okay, before we jump into the code here, let's access the back office of our website to fetch both the ID for the parent page and the alias of the article document type. So in the previous chapter, we already had our project running. It had just hit the breakpoint I set here, and we could see all the data that was submitted via our form down here in the model. Now let's select continue up here and jump back to our website. Great. Now in order to get the parent page ID and the alias for our document type, we need to access the back office. So let me just hit in there, Umbraco, and log in as well. Now, if you're using the project provided with this chapter, you will find login details on the documentation page associated with each of the videos in the chapter. All right, we're in the back office. Let's start by getting the ID for the parent page. So we'll be adding articles under the articles page here. So select that and navigate to the info menu up here. Right. So we're actually going to be grabbing the GUID here instead of the ID. For our hosted products, Umbraco Cloud, Uno, and Hardcore, the ID is environment specific. This means that the pages might have different IDs on each environment. The GUID, on the other hand, is 100% static and will be the same across all environments. So for good practice, we'll grab the GUID, which is the long string down here. All right, so I'll copy that into a notepad here. There we go. Okay, we also need the alias of the document type that we're going to be using for creating the articles. So let's head into the settings section. Open the document types folder here. And the one we'll be using is the article document type. All right, so we'll be using a method to grab the alias from the document type. And all we need for now is to ensure that we have the correct name for the document type, which in this case is article. So I'll just copy this and paste it into our node as well. Here we go. All right, now we should have everything we need. Go ahead and close the browser window here, which will also shut down the project for us. If not, you can select the stop icon, which will be up here, to stop the project. All right, let me just remove the breakpoint here. There we are. So we'll be working in the submit method here, which we in the previous video set up to be triggered when our article form is submitted. The method takes a parameter, which is an object of our article model, and that object will be called model, as we need to refer to it in the method. The very first thing we need to do in this method is we need to access the content service. We'll be using the content service a lot, so let's create a variable so we can refer to that every time we need something from the content service. We'll call the variable content service, and we need to get the content service, which is in the services property. So that'll be services.content service. Now, when we use the content service variable here, we'll have access to all the methods in the content service. Now, the next thing we will need is the GUID for our parent page. Let's put that into a variable as well. We will call it parent ID, and we'll create a new GUID object with the GUID that we copied from the back office. I will grab that here and put it here. All right, there we are. Now let's start creating some content. We'll add another variable. Let's call this one article, as this will essentially be representing our new article content item. Now with this variable, we'll be creating the content item itself. So we'll say content service, our variable from up here, and we'll use the create method. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, this method takes 3 parameters. The first one is the name that the new content item will have. In this case, that should be the name property from our model. So that means whatever the user typed into the name field in the form will be used as the name of the article. All right. The next parameter is our parent ID, and we created a variable for that. So let's do like this. And finally, the alias of our document type, which we'll get by using the name of our document type article, followed by model type alias. And this needs to be capitalized. There we are. And we need to use our published models as well. Great, this will now create a new piece of content for us. If we were to try and run the project and fill in the form now, it would succeed, but nothing would happen as we are not persisting our changes. We are not saving or publishing the content item yet. So let's do that. Let's jump down a line here. We'll again be using a method from the content service. So let's fetch our variable here, content service. And the method we'll be using here is called save and publish. Now, the method will save and publish the content item. In some cases, you might only want to use save and then publish at a later point. For that, you can simply say save here instead of save and publish. Now, this method takes a single parameter, and this is the actual content that we want to save, and that would be our article variable in this case. So we'll put that here. And then we have our return to current Umbraco page down here, which is great. All right, let's fire it up and see what happens while we fill in the form. And our submit article here. All right, I'll just add some test content for now. So let's do like this. Some content and my name. There we go. So let's try and submit. All right, looks like it all went perfectly fine, but let's have a look at our article page, just to be sure. All right, it looks like we actually have an article here. Let's give it a look. The article has been created, but none of the values has been filled in. Only the name that I added is used. Now, that's because so far we have only created the content item, the article. We have not yet mapped the rest of the data from the form submission to the properties on the article, which is also why it looks a bit empty at the moment. All right, let's take a look at the back office as well. And we'll open our new article here under articles. And there it is. Yes, all the properties here are completely empty. Let's do something about that and make sure we publish a completed article when the form is submitted. Close the browser window here and we're back in Visual Studio. In order to map the data to the correct properties, we need the alias of the properties. And then we need to use our article variable from up here to set the values of the properties using the data coming from our model. Our model, which we already have access to by using the model variable. So let's start with the summary property, as we have already mapped the name of the article to the name of the content item. So we'll want to do that before we save the article. So let's say here, we'll create another variable for the property. We will call it summary property. All right, and we need to get the property type from the article document type. So like we did when we fetched the alias of the document type, let's say article, and then we'll get model property type, which in this case is summary. All right, I can see I missed a Y here. There we are. Next up, we're going to set the value. To do that, we need the article variable, our newly created content, and then the set value method. This method takes two parameters. First, the alias of our summary property. So summary property and alias. And the second parameter is the data from our model. So let's say model dot, and then the name of the summary property from our model, which is also summary. All right, let's end it like this. So what happens here is that on our new article content item, we're taking the value from the summary property on our model from the form data submission and filling it into the summary property, which is part of the document type that we're using. And now we need to do the same, these two lines, for the article content and for both author name and author title. We'll leave out the image for now, as we'll cover that in the next video. Let me just speed things up a bit here and give you a quick walkthrough of the code once I'm done. I've now mapped the rest of the data from the form to the properties under article. For each property, I've created a variable to get the property type from the article document type. Then again, for each property, I've used the set value method from our newly created content item and mapped the data from the form with the corresponding property and the content on the new article. Great. Now when the form is filled out, it should create a complete article for our website. Although still without the image, but we'll get to that. Let's try to fire it up once again and see this in action. All right, on the submit article here. So let's call this one test article, a summary, some contents, and then the author details here. There we go. All right, let's try to submit it. And again, it looks like it was successful. Great. Let's check out the article section. Okay, we have a new article here. Looks promising. Let's give it a closer look. And sure enough, we now have an article that looks more like an article. All right, and let's just for good measure have a look in the back office as well. And we'll find our article over here and the test article. Yes, the properties are filled in. We've now successfully used our model, view, and controller to programmatically create a new piece of content with a set of populated properties. So far, so good. Now, in this video, we've been using the content service to create, save, and publish content. In order to create media on our website, we need to use a different service. That is the media service, which will be our gateway to the media API. And that's all in the next video, where we'll be using the upload field on our form to add an image to the articles as well.